And I think what I keep gathering is the ideas, as long as we follow the ideas that we're already in place. If you think about it, all the assisted livings in our area are following extreme precautions. So they're limiting the visitors. And from everything that we know, what we want to do is be careful for seniors and make sure that they are the ones staying out of harm's way. In fact, I was just looking at an article that was from Fox 13 over in Orlando. And obviously what they're concerned about, CDC urges millennials to lead the fight against this virus thing because they feel fine. So they're going to take spring break and head out to the beach and congregate. But then we always go back home to our families. And so those are the places that we want to be careful. And everything that I can read about this is cleanliness. You know, they say cleanliness is next to godliness, right? Yeah. And maybe that's the real thing here. It's the hand washing is effective. Right. The hand sanitizers are effective. If you think about it, they're saying laundry detergent kills us off. So there's no real reason, if we're not careful, that there just isn't really a reason to do anything other than be careful for a couple of weeks.
Right. And, you know, I think, too, everyone being cautious but not necessarily fearful. I mean, we're really being, as a country, proactive by the social distancing, and then, you know, we're hopefully shortening the time that this is going to be a long-term problem. So, and right, the millennials, I know my kids have been calling me, how are you feeling, what are you doing? And I think that the youngers are very concerned as well in keeping their parents and everyone safe.
You know, I heard they had Cardinal Dolan up in New York City at St. Patrick's Cathedral was on the news this morning, and he was answering some questions from people who were watching the news. And I thought he made a couple of really important and good points. He said, you know, we trust in God. He said, so on the one hand, we have this panic mode over here, and on the other hand, we have laissez-faire. He says, well, what I believe is we're finding the spot in between where we're being rational, careful. Even he used the word concerned is okay, but let's not be panicking and let's not do nothing either. So the official report here is coronavirus cases in Florida jumped by nearly 100 overnight, now at 314. And I think this is going to be the biggest part of the news cycle that we're going to have to understand is we're going to discover cases because now we're measuring them much more effectively than we were a week or two back. So we're going to see the jump, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's spreading because, if anything, we're taking these advanced steps to be sure that we're not spreading.
Yeah, I think one of the worst things that people have done is steal all the toilet paper off the shelves so that other people don't have a chance to get it, and that's not right.
There are so many memes about this out on the internet now about the jokes regarding toilet paper and things like that, and but one of the things that is a good response that I've seen is all these stores are closing early so that they have extra time to clean. And one of the best things, and I think this is kudos to Dollar General, as an example, who came out and said, listen, we're going to open up the first hour of the day, and we want seniors and people who have a compromised situation to be able to shop there. Why? Because obviously everything is freshly cleaned. It's going to be the safest time for them to be in there, and they want to take care of seniors. So I think if we think about this, and I was really thinking about this even in terms of what we do as a Florida nonprofit charity, we are here on behalf of helping seniors, and our whole goal all along has been to get people to wake up and understand seniors are a vulnerable population just like kids are a vulnerable population. We want to make sure kids are safe now that they're home from school because of the precautions, but we need to make sure seniors are as well.
But you know one thing, Kerry and Barbara, that this whole thing has pointed out and continues to point out, well, right now, I don't know how many people are listening to us. If it's 100, 1,000, 5,000. But if everyone that's listening took it seriously, what we're talking about, and realized there is a definite need for there to be in Brevard County a senior news information network that is recognized and people know about it and know that they're going to get good information if they tune into it. And one of the only ways that we can make this happen is if those of you that are listening to us, and Kerry, back me up by your experience, those of you that are listening, it's so important that if you enjoy or learn something from what we talk about, that you tell your friends and have them tell their friends so that we can build a senior network information outlet here in Brevard County that people know is available, know they can contact us by calling the Senior Resource Center and talking to Kim. And our number for that, folks, is area code 321-473-7770. But know that number. Know that if you call Kim, know that if you tell her that you have seen a problem, and it's just like the day before yesterday, we had a very, very senior lady call early in the morning and was extremely upset that she couldn't go shopping. She could not drive. And with the cutback in transportation, with the cutback in store availability and everything else that's hurting, and especially seniors that don't drive, that are at home. We know we've reduced the Meals on Wheels program delivery. We've reduced the food outlet stations by a number of 12, and those are tremendous, significant numbers when you talk about seniors that depend on these outlets for their daily meals. You can get by and subsist on a diet of fruit and cereal as long as you can get milk, unless you want to eat your cereal with water, and I don't want to do that. But, all kidding aside, what's happening right now across our country, and especially here in Brevard County, with the number of seniors that we have, and you continue to point out, Kerry, that it's so important that we have a single senior network source that people trust, and people can listen to it, like if they tune into us on Wednesday afternoon. And I've always been an advocate for expanding this network. I know it's needed, but it takes money to do it.
Yep.
And I don't go out and call people and ask them for money. We call people and ask them to be sponsors of our program, because people that take care of seniors should recognize that they also should help support a program like Helping Seniors, so that we can continue to get good information out. When somebody says, well, I'm not going to help you because I didn't get a referral.
Oh, goodness.
My goodness. They've got to recognize that if they're going to be in the business of taking care of seniors, they've got to be wholly into the business.
Exactly right. And I was thinking about this. We've talked about this a lot internally, and Barbara McIntyre, you also understand this because you serve people throughout this county too. And one of the things that, even though we have a lovely office over at the Senior Resource Center of Brevard, and it is pretty much centrally located as far as the center of Brevard goes, we have talked for years. We live in a county 72 miles long, north to south.
Right.
And so that's one of the reasons that we have focused in on trying to be everywhere media-wise, both in terms of magazines, newspapers, being on the radio, being on the television, all those things, so that we can reach people. As we often say, it almost sounds like a tagline, from Miko to Mims.
Right. Going to their homes, going to a senior's home that maybe doesn't have an ability to get to a location to get information. And when I'm talking to seniors about my product, the conversation far exceeds just a mortgage. In the time I spend with that senior, there's many topics that come up. It could be anything from needing more access to get to purchase food or have Meals on Wheels, or it doesn't matter when you're in a senior's home. And that's part of what I like about what I do, is I'm able to go to someone's home and see if they need any services to put grab bars or ramps or anything that I can see that has been overlooked. I can point them to places to get some help. And I think that the benefit of Helping Seniors is that all of the sponsors that are involved have a broader view of what we do for our senior community than just the product we currently are involved in.
Well, I think that's one of the important things, Barbara,
Absolutely.
that what you've just pointed out, because we're not geared to, as an organization, to focus on one single thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not just in the business of being an assisted living facility or being a handyman or being somebody that does reverse mortgage funding like you do, or being any of the number of things that people we have in our directory, which is in the Senior Scene newsletter every month. What we're about, folks, is bringing to you a product that helps you live your senior years safely, better informed, and in a way that you can talk to other people and say, we need to build a better senior network. And Kerry, this is backed up by the fact that while we had to cancel our first Advocacy Council meeting, we had 50 people because 7 people showed up on the day of the seminar, which you had to cancel, and 3 of them were quite upset that we had to cancel it, but and we couldn't inform them because we didn't know they were coming.
Right.
But it points out that it makes a point that I think a lot of seniors understand that we need to do a better job of making the news about resources such as Meals on Wheels, such as the Sunflower House, such as the senior lunch program, or our senior care centers and the programs that they have there that help the people that go there. Now, what a lot of people have to understand, we get a lot of people come down our snowbirds.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And they come down from New York, and they come down from New Jersey,
mm-hmm.
and a couple other northern states. And in those states, they have programs that allow a senior, say, to go to a senior center in the morning and for a couple of bucks. And I'm serious, folks. For a couple of dollars, get breakfast and lunch,
mm-hmm.
and they play games. They do things all day long. And seniors that are no longer working, they don't want to just be housebound. They
mm-hmm.
want to get out and socialize. And they get out in the community, and this is what we lack in Brevard County. We don't have this. We have some senior centers, but we don't have a good product. That's my opinion. Kerry?
Well, I think you're hitting a nail on the head. I was thinking you were the person that was instrumental, and that's why they call them to this day the Joe's Clubs, because that was named after you and your fight to get the daycare centers for seniors opened up and get that whole program rolling so that people can enjoy that. And I was thinking about this line that we often hear, it's attributed to children, it takes a village to raise a child.
Right.
But at the same time, I think that's true when it comes to seniors and what you said. And I remember this even when you were first creating Helping Seniors. You said, I've done all this work with the Alzheimer's. I got that program rolling. And now I want to address the fact that seniors have more problems than specifically memory related, and I want to find a way that we can get information out about that. And so I was thinking, like, most of the time, the reason that we are able, as a small Florida nonprofit charity, the reason that we make such a difference is because we've served over 3,000 people since this organization was created free of charge. They call the Senior Information Helpline, and then our educational specialist, Kim, gets on the phone, works through the problem, and because we internally have sort of spent so much time figuring out where these resources are, we can usually get connected someone to a resource that really can make all the difference in the world for them. And so it is I think it's a testimony, actually, to the value of information and our ability to be a connector to that information for seniors.
Well, let me make a point about something here. With what's happened right now with the COVID-19
mm-hmm.
threat and everything that's going on, it emphasizes the fact that we do not have an emergency fund here in Brevard County that would enable seniors to get some very basic services for survival. Mm-hmm. And just like we had the very elderly caller that needed transportation. Let's mm-hmm. say that we had a senior system here, and we had a senior endowment, and we have a situation such as we have now. And if we had a good senior network, like on a radio, and we could get information out, and people would know in times of an emergency to go to this, and it could be a government thing if that's the way it's going to be. But my experience is it doesn't respond that quick. But if we had a fund that could say, let's take an organization like Seniors Helping Seniors. They have people working for them, and if we had a low cost or a fund, and we could say to the person that called, all right, we've got an organization called Seniors Helping Seniors, and you call them, and they will take you where you need to go, and they'll stay with you if you need help, and then take you back home and put your groceries away. But Seniors Helping Seniors can't do that for you because they got to pay the people that work for them. So, right. But maybe that service could be provided, say, for $30. The senior that needs the help doesn't have that kind of money. They're living on a fixed income. A situation comes like the problem right now. I always can't say that coronavirus.
Right, we know
coronavirus.
Right.
I have a heck of a time remembering how to say that word. But anyway, my point is, we don't have these things available. And government, while President Trump wants to send a $1,000 check to everybody in the country, most of us don't need that. Some do. But we need to figure out a way to get these things to the right people. And that's why you need organizations, local organizations that can get these things out.
That money going into funds, if that money would be established into the fund that you just were describing, what a perfect way to then filter that money to Seniors Helping Seniors and to different groups that they can't afford to just do it as for free. But if a fund came from the government, particularly right now, I mean, these people, our seniors, they're really captive in their homes and they need the help. And like you say, sending them $1,000 might not do it, but putting it into a fund and then them knowing they can call a number to be taken somewhere, or their groceries brought to them, or whatever. We definitely need to have.
It's providing a service that is needed, not just simply giving somebody a handout. And this is what's often misunderstood about people when, we don't like, there are certain organizations that, we got one that we get 4 or 5 phone calls a day from this one organization for donations. Helping Seniors, we've never had a general plan or program that just calls everybody for donations. We've never done that. We have a car raffle, and we have an annual fund, and I send a letter out. And if you want to be a part of this program, then you can make a donation. And I think that most of the people I send the letter to can make a donation. And some of the donations for $25 and $50 for tickets to Kerry and Brevard come back in pretty shaky hands. And, they're not giving us $100. They can't afford it.
They're doing what they can.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And that's the purpose. That's the start of what we're talking about today, is doing what you can to help someone else. And that's so important.
Well, one of the things I was going to bring up is that we had done the senior information survey in 2015, and we're going to be redoing that as part of advocacy. And one of the things that we found out when we went through that was how much people need services and information that keeps them connected to those things. It's not so much necessarily, they just need to know who to call. They come in from out of state. Like you said, it's snowbirds who may be down here part of the time. It's also adult children of older parents who are living here, and they just need to know who to trust and where to begin the path.
Yeah, it's exactly right, and it's so hard. And I want to talk today a little bit about people that get in a situation, Barbara, right now where they need money and they just don't have anywhere to turn. They've got a home, and I see Tom Selleck, one of my favorite movie actors, always on the TV talking about reverse mortgages, and I see him in those outfits where he was that cowboy down in Australia, and it was really, really a good movie, and I can see him standing there talking about reverse mortgages, and we make light of the subject, but it's extremely important, Barbara, people.
It really is.
Know.
And reverse mortgages, particularly what we're talking about now, and even with what's going on with the stock market and its big plunge, using your value, some of the equity in your home to help you have what you need at home, and also to rely on when you don't want to be drawing dividends out of your stock portfolio in a down market. I mean, there's a million reasons to include a reverse mortgage in your plan. So if we're talking about seniors who are really living on a shoestring, then obviously we're not talking about stocks. But what we are talking about is their house is an asset, and they cannot eat the bricks and the mortar of their house. But what they can do is put in place a reverse mortgage, which allows them to get some of the value of their house, some of the equity in their hands. And once they have that, now they have some funds that can pay for some services that they need brought in. And so it shouldn't be forgotten. What it should be is tailored to the senior. The person instructing or informing them about how it would work for them needs to be someone local and someone reputable.
But it's kind of like being as part of an emergency planning fund. And when you put something like this in place, and folks, we're just down to where we got to take a mid-show break, but I really want to pick up on this, what a reverse mortgage can do for you if you do it the right way and use it the right way. That's the hard part. So we want to talk about that after we come back off the break.
Okay, we'll
take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about that, and there's a couple other topics we want to talk about, the raffle especially. Don't let me run out. Forget that, Kerry.
All right.
Okay, stay with us, folks. We'll be back in a few minutes here.
Here is your host of the show, Joe Steckler.
Thank you, John. Folks, if we were on TV, you would see what appears to be a senior chorus line trying to move and to the tune that John has on the air. But, television and radio for seniors can be used the right way. And I think the right way is to help seniors and those that care for seniors understand there are some serious times in our country or in our lives that we have to do our own planning for how we can make something positive and good happen. And we've talked about this so much over the years, and I guess we just continue to drive it in. But, folks, the phone number, if you got a question about what we're talking about, is 722-9998. And you can call and ask about what we're talking about. If something is bothering you, can ask us. 722-9998. But before the break, we were talking about a good way to use a reverse mortgage. And Barbara can tell you how a financial planner talked to her about something, but it's just like if you put your stock market, if you use mutual funds and anything else to build a portfolio to help yourself in your later years, help pay bills and stuff like that, that's up to you. It's not up to the government to do something like that. The government can help set up an emergency fund like we're talking about, but it's not something that you should get to be dependent upon. You should be dependent upon what you can do yourself. And if seniors stick together and we understand how these things work, we can do a lot about sticking together and good at programs. And reverse mortgage, it's if you put it in place, and Barbara's going to talk about some positive aspects, but I want you to understand, a reverse mortgage, it's just like building a stock portfolio or anything like that. It's up to you to control yourself on how much you take out of that. It's just like if you decide you're going to deplete your checkbook and be very doggone foolish and not have anything to pay your bills, you're in trouble. But go ahead, Barbara, talk to us a little about this reverse mortgage and what's a good thing.
Well, the good things about a reverse mortgage, just like you said, Joe, is that the borrower is completely in control of how they use the available money. And the equity in their home is what is determined by the reverse mortgage, and their age lets them know how much they can access. But if they don't have an immediate need to take any money, they don't have to. So it becomes a safety net. And so as they age and it becomes more difficult to qualify for a mortgage in the future, they know they have access to funds. So here the years go by, those funds are going to continue to give them more borrowing power just by the nature of the mortgage. The funds that are available grow. A little complex, but it just does it within the loan. And then let's say something happens like now, and they need home health care. They've gotten more elder. Maybe one of the two borrowers has passed away and income is reduced. Now they have this safety net that they had put into place, and they just start to draw on the funds. And the benefits of the mortgage are the funds are tax-free, so it's not income. So there's a lot of very positive aspects to a reverse mortgage. People that don't know what they don't know will still often say, oh, that's the mortgage where the bank owns your house. Well, that isn't true. It's never been true. You're the owner. You make all the decisions about your home. The bank is not buying your home and doesn't own your home. Or someone may say, oh, if we do that, then our children will have no equity. They'll never inherit a penny. That's not true either. Homes are appreciating at a very steady pace, and what is loaned on a reverse mortgage, 9 times out of 10, is designed to leave retained equity for heirs to inherit. So, like we've been saying this whole program, knowledge is power. What you know, when it comes from a reliable information source, is just information that is going to give you another option to help protect your future. And times are rough, and it's important to use every asset you have to understand how it can be used smartly in a long-term plan.
Okay.
So it's a good product, and again, information is power. So knowledge is power.
Well, let me. I wanted Kerry to talk about, but before even get Kerry have that mic, I want to say this. During the break, I asked Barbara a question about. I said, Barbara, how long does it take to get a reverse mortgage? And she said 30 days.
Wow.
Now think about that, folks. When you come into a crisis, you don't have 30 days. And as Barbara pointed out, just like long-term health care insurance, if you purchase it early, it costs less. If you have a clause that says that the policy increases and provides increased benefits, like mine does, then you're very fortunate. But you have to put these things in place, and you have to bite the bullet and say, it's just like insurance, it's a risk. You're putting money in place to provide you with money to care for you in case of an emergency. It's just like a person might have a retirement and might have your Social Security, and you might have money in the bank. But think about this, folks. If you have all those things, do you have enough that is going to pay for $8,000 or $9,000 a month in a nursing home? If you do, how long do you have that capability? And some of these things that we're talking about it all requires discipline. And it just like in the early years of radio, Kerry, when, and I imagine you could talk a lot about this, people didn't understand what the power of radio could do in terms of getting information out to people. And it took a long time, I imagine, to sell that to the general public.
You know, when you think about it, radio is just about 100 years old now, right? Because it was the early 20s that it actually became a medium. And if you think about it, people have written radio off and say, oh, we have our computers, we don't need radio anymore. But I think what they do is they assume radio is a transmitter, a specific stick in a tower. But even while we're talking over a 30,000 watt stereo FM radio station that blankets up and down the Space Coast, you people are listening to us right now online at WEJF.net. And so they're hearing the program if they're attached to their computer and maybe even outside of our specific coverage area, which is the entire Space Coast. And on top of that, we also, as you know, we podcast all of our programs. So people are able to go back and pull these programs up well after the broadcast and access the information that's harnessed here. I wanted to jump back and make a comment about the conversation you and Barbara were having about reverse mortgages, because I think when everything's smooth sailing, everybody remembers that song, The Arkansas Traveler, and there was a line in there about, well, why don't you fix your roof? It's not raining, so it's not leaking. So we always think about these things when we get into a tight corner. And sometimes I wonder if we get into tight corners, it's an exercise to help us figure out, like, okay, let's take a look at what we're doing. Is this the best way? But I wanted to ask you a question, Barb. So as I understand it, when you put a reverse mortgage in place, there's no obligation for you to have to actually borrow the money.
Absolutely. It's just there for you. So no one tells you how much to draw out or when or, it can sit there indefinitely.
So it is really, you could use it as an insurance policy.
Absolutely.
Where you set it up. And we were talking during the break, and I don't know that it actually came out, but I thought it was an interesting story. You were relating about a client that their financial advisor said, oh, I don't know if they should do that because they may be irresponsible with their money.
Right.
I thought your response was great to that.
Yeah, the financial advisor was, very intrigued by the product, but he said, I don't want to know that I should introduce this product to this client because he'll just go spend it all. And I said, oh, what are you, big brother? But in some ways he is. He's his advisor. He's trying to make sure he doesn't run out, go use all the money. But, back to what you said about you don't have to draw it. I've told you a couple times I put a reverse mortgage on my home when I turned 62 and fully intend to not use it until I'm in my 80s if I need health care at home. And so it's available and it's continuing to give me access to more of my own home equity, but I don't need to draw on it now. So there it sits.
And I think the other point that you and Joe were talking about was people say, well, now if you draw all this down, you're not going to be able to leave anything to your kids, et cetera. But from a sort of a naive, maybe uneducated consumer's point of view, I look at it and say, well, if I was going to, I get offers in the mail, say, tap the equity in your home, you can do this if you need to put a new roof on or whatever. So you would think, well, I'll go down to the bank and have them give me a home equity loan. But guess what? Then I have payments, right?
There you go. And that's the worst possible thing for someone on a fixed income as they're fully in retirement, to be forced to take on debt that requires repayment. Because when a life event occurs, when they can't make the repayment, now they face the risk of foreclosure on that loan. And my skin crawls when I think of someone well into their retirement years being forced to take a loan with repayment requirements on a fixed income. It makes me very nervous for them.
Right.
Barbara, there was one thing that I think in the past when we talked about a reverse mortgage was that did I hear you correctly or not or did you make a statement about if somebody takes a reverse mortgage out on their house, it continues to earn interest?
It doesn't earn interest, but what it does is it allows for the continued access to more credit at a rate of interest. So to try to make this simple, if there's a line of credit, that line of credit is continuing to increase.
Okay.
And it's not earning interest because equity isn't cash, it's equity. It's its value in the home, but it has a built-in feature that keeps saying you're going to have access to more and more borrowing power, and it's at a rate of growth equal to an interest rate, which is why people get confused by it. So that's why when I say I did my reverse mortgage at 62 and I could borrow, let's say, $100,000 if I wanted it, when I'm 82, my borrowing power will have grown and compounded to about $350,000 of my own equity. So
now, how did that happen?
Because the mortgage contract says that borrowing power is going to compound and grow at a rate of interest, the same rate of interest that's attached to my mortgage. So there is my ability to borrow $100,000 and 62. Now I'm 66 and it's $155,000, and it's compounding. And that it's borrowing power though. It's not. It's cash when I ask for it. And if I said I want my $155 today, they'd send me a check. But I plan to let it compound and grow, and it is my long-term health care plan when I am in my 80s.
Does that grow in interest because the house increases and what causes it to do this?
What causes the growth is the actual details in the mortgage that say it's going to work like that. Now, why do reverse mortgages do this? Because, yes, we believe the home is appreciating. We believe the borrower is getting older. The whole idea of a reverse mortgage is to make it possible for aging borrowers to tap into their own equity in their home. So if the things I said are true, the house is becoming worth more and the borrower's getting older, then why shouldn't they have more borrowing power? So the concept is around that, but the reason it grows is because the mortgage agreement says it's going to. So if we had another downturn in home value, it would not stop the growth of that line of credit.
That was another point that I wanted to bring up or ask you about, was because I was thinking, too, I remember when you and Joe have done TV shows on this in the past and you've done radio shows on this past, you've also made the point that if somebody borrows this money and then just something were to happen where house values would tank, the heirs are protected against that from the standpoint that, as I understand, if you had an appropriately backed reverse mortgage, then the exposure is limited to the value of the home, as opposed to saying, well, now we sold your home, but you still owe us $20,000 or something out of your estate.
Absolutely correct, and that's because the FHA HECM, home equity conversion mortgage, is insured by FHA. There's insurance money that is in a fund that backs up that guarantee. Now, we haven't seen that happen in a long time because homes are continuing to appreciate in a steady pace. But back in 2008, when we had the downturn, we did see some homes that were worth less when the borrower left the property than what the mortgage balance was. We saw that in all homes, whether it was a reverse mortgage or a regular mortgage. Houses were what we called then upside down or underwater. Well, in the case of the reverse mortgage, the mortgage insurance premium that the borrower paid in as part of the loan, that's what gives the heirs no responsibility to the debt. No deficiency judgment is passed on. And that's why a reverse mortgage is such an attractive loan to people aging, because
folks,
it protects their heirs.
You're getting a lesson today in emergency planning, estate planning, how you can do something yourself to make something positive for yourself happening. A question I have, Barbara, if a person wants to take out a reverse mortgage, do they have to own the home, or can they be buying the home?
Both, actually. You can use a reverse mortgage to purchase a home now. It's the same mortgage, and the specifics about the mortgage are the same. So it's still based on age. It's still based on the purchase price, or if you already own the home, the current value of the home. And yes, you can use a reverse mortgage to either refinance an existing home or to buy a new home. And we see that more all the time, particularly with new boomer seniors who are starting to move into the home, the last home they want to have. And what they do is they are able to purchase that home for maybe 50% of the purchase price. That allows them to bring maybe 50% of the cash that the home is being sold for, but leave the rest of that money invested and working for them. So it's very attractive to retirees. And the other part that is attractive is that people can make repayment on a reverse mortgage. So if the borrower is young, they may continue to go ahead and make payments. And that starts to contribute to that growing line of credit. So again, it's another strategy to planning for a long retirement. And we're living a whole lot longer today than we ever used to.
So I would say that the key takeaway or the key strategy is 1-800-CALL-BARB.
Well, and you can do that. Not 1-800-CALL-BARB, but you can call 321-259-7880. Again, it's 321-259-7880. And I love to answer questions. You can tell I love what I do, so just give me a call anytime.
Well, I'll go back again to what Terry talked about. Kerry talked about our podcasts and worldwide YouTube and everything else. And we did a television show on this, folks. And Barbara was very good on the show, and she answered the questions I asked her, much as she did today. But it adds knowledge to a topic that is, for a lot of people, very difficult to understand. And if you don't do this the right way, you can make one heck of a big mistake. And Barbara, you remember that you told me that you were sitting in your house and you got this phone call, and what happened?
The gentleman on the other end of the phone, he said he was looking at me, and I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, I'm looking at you right now. And he was calling from California. And I said, "You're looking at me?" And he was on a replay or a YouTube of that taped television show. I was shocked, and he had a lot of questions, and we had a nice conversation. I was able to answer his questions, but I was just tickled when he said he was looking at me on YouTube, and he was in California.
Well, but what I wanted to get across, aside from the humorous aspect of it, the man was concentrating on what you were saying on the show to the point that, because he was interested in a reverse mortgage, and he did not believe that the information he was getting in California from the people he was talking to was nearly as accurate as what you were saying on our TV show. And he liked what you said, and he wanted you to work with him.
Yes, that's exactly
on getting
right.
a heck of, and this is this is important, folks, because when you're building an estate plan, you've got to go to the right person, and sometimes the person is plural, and it takes more than just an attorney to put in a good estate plan in place. I think you have to talk to people that can tell you how you can use your available assets to increase your safety network.
Right.
And that's exactly what we're talking about today. When we have a situation such as we're having in our country today, there are so many unknowns, Kerry and Barbara. We just don't know what's going to happen. I am fortunate because I can use my, I don't want to use my credit card, but I could if I had to, but I can pay for what I would want to do if an emergency situation with reasonable purchasing power. I can pay for it. But there are so many people that can't. But if you had, and I don't know the answer to this question, you should take the heck amount when you're young or middle or older, and there's certain advantages, and we got a couple of minutes we can talk about that. But if I put it in place at a certain point in my life and never touched, we got 3 minutes, never touched it, how can I make that work best for me, Barbara?
Well, that's the example that I've said about what I did. In my scenario, because I was still working and am still working, I don't have a need for accessing those funds. So to take it out at 62 and just let it be available for the future worked perfectly. But there's other scenarios where maybe people are raising their kids and they need all the money that they can get, but now the kids have gone, college is paid for. Now they're ready maybe to buy the retirement home. They've got assets invested. Now they'd like to keep their money working for them, but they don't want a mortgage payment. So it might be the time then. So every person, every situation is different. And that's why oftentimes I speak with a financial planner and the client, because every situation is different. No one size fits all.
Folks, you got some real good advice today, and you almost let me forget it.
Oh.
Folks, the car raffle has been delayed until sometime, we hope, in May. And Mark Pylock, the owner of the museum, sent me a personal email saying that he would do everything within his power to get us back on track at the museum. And the reason that we're just postponing it, folks, is because I know that so many of the people want to they buy the tickets because they want to see the cars at the museum.
Absolutely.
They do. For that reason, they also want to help us. So it's been delayed. If you watch our Facebook page,
yes.
if you and Kerry, you talk about it.
I was just going to say that's the most important part about everything we're talking about. While things are moving, I would say on an hourly basis almost. Keep track of Helping Seniors on Facebook. It's Helping Seniors of Brevard. Find us on Facebook. Make sure that you follow us, and you're going to get updates on the car raffle. You're going to get updates. You know, Joe, we have almost getting close to 300 TV shows, archived radio shows. So while we are supposed to be at home, this is a great time to catch up on a lot of good information there, too, about all this. So you can access all of that through the Facebook page for Helping Seniors.
Okay, we're down to 1 minute. One quick question. I want to thank you, Barbara, for being here today, and thank you, Kerry. But, Kerry, if can they go to our helpingseniors.brevard.org and find out? Will we have information on there, too?
Yes, everything is duplicated. Whatever we put on Facebook is also on our website. We also, for those who Twitter, we have a Twitter feed. We also are on LinkedIn, and we're on Instagram. So we try to get every announcement out across all of those channels so people can stay up to date on everything that's happening.
Okay. We're going to have to wrap it up now, folks. But like I said, thank you, Kerry. Thank you, Barbara, for being on the show today. And thank you, listeners, for listening. And we'll wrap it up, John, and see you next week, folks.